Akínlábí báwo ni?
Fine, sir. Ẹ kú ọjọ́
How
mẹ́ta,
are you
sir.
doing? How are
Fine,
you
sir.
doing?
Yes,
Báwo
sir.
ni iṣẹ́?
Adúpẹ́,
Pẹ̀lẹ́.
sir. Àǹtí, sir. Báwo ni ẹni gbọ́ bá ń, sir?
Oh, thank God. Báwo ni family?
Adúpẹ́, sir.
Pẹ̀lẹ́.
Ẹ̀rẹ̀ kú tọ̀rẹ́ mi tẹ́ wá mi gbà sọ́dọ̀ fídíò mi. Adékúta
Oní?
fídíò mi. Ọ̀rẹ́ mi tẹ́
Eh?
gbà sọ́dọ̀ Adékúta fídíò mi. Ọ̀rẹ́ mi.
Okay, okay. Abídèmí,
Ọlọ́run wà
okay.
lọ́gán. Yes, sir.
A ṣe
Ẹ
sọ
ṣé gan ni o.
ìgbẹ́lẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ lánàá.
Yes, sir.
Ìgbẹ́lẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ lánàá. Ó wà ní Durban.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni,
Pẹ̀lẹ́
sir.
báwo ni ìfẹ́? Báwo ni ìfẹ́?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay, okay. Ṣé wọ́n ti gbẹ iṣẹ́ mi báyìí?
Wọ́n ti gbà mí o. Wọ́n ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ publicize fún Quest ni bọ̀.
Wọ́n ti advertise báyìí àbí?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni wọ́n ti advertise báyìí.
Okay.
Advertise.
Sáwọn èèyàn ti dé bẹ́ẹ̀ ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ sẹ́sẹ̀ yìí náà.
We are here, sir. We are here.
Peter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we start now?
Yes, sir. We can start.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, we have, for this session, we have, my name is Dr. Omalufa Gbadebo. I'm from Durban University of Technology here in South Africa. We have paper presenters, Mr. Akínlábí Akínkúnmi. You are there?
Yes, sir. I'm here, sir.
Okay. Mr. Olaolu Peter Oluwasanmi, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Then Mr. Boniface Ifeanyi Oji, are you there? Boniface Ifeanyi Oji?
Not yet. Not here yet. Maybe he's on his way.
Okay. Okay. Dowell Igboho Oba.
He should be on his way too, sir.
Okay. Mojirayo Patricia Oyebamiji.
I'm here, sir.
Okay. I'm going to give each and every one of you 10 minutes to present, or is 10 minutes too much
It's okay, sir.
or too small? Eh?
It's fine.
It's okay, sir. It's
Okay.
okay, sir.
10 minutes for presentation so that we'll be able to have a robust discussion on your papers. Okay, without wasting much time, let me call on Akilabi to proceed. Akilabi, proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Another member of the panel, Makinlabi Akikumi Afis, as introduced by Dr. Agbadebo, sir. Please, I would like to share my screen, please.
Go ahead.
Let me my slides.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, excuse me, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm presenting on African citizenship and the African Union's vision of Africanity in the 21st century. And the interest of the work is basically to examine how African Union has been making efforts in uniting Africa, who define that the concept of Africanity stands for the unification of the continent, both politically, economic, and cultural. Now, for this work, the work is built on creation of identity, which is entail political identity, cultural identity, and geographical identity also, if that is allowed to use. Now, it is observed that literature has argued that the colonial still affects identity in Africa, especially in the distribution of borders, how Africa is being divided into various countries today. The modern day African states are legacy of colonialism. And we could see the example of Nigeria-Cameroon border dispute and border genocide, which are embedded in colonial legacy. And for this reason, African states in 1965 decided to establish an Organization of Africanity for the purpose of uniting the continent. But the OAU failed in its vision because it couldn't provide economic development for the continent. And that was the need for the establishment of AU to replace the OAU in 2002. The two organizations, despite the deviance in the time they were established, was built on Pan-African vision, Pan-African idea, which is built on the idea that Africans should move out of the colonial legacy and imperialism and come together as one. Now, for AU to achieve this, AU designed a document which is tagged as Agenda 63, Africa we want. The agenda basically is to promote inclusive growth, sustainable development based on Pan-African idea and to unite the African continent in nearly all fields, most especially economic, culture, and political. Now, the Africanity as a concept, like I said earlier, it has to do with creating a single Africa entity where there is political unity, this similar cultural identity. And this Africanity is well pronounced in the document, as the documents serve as a bedrock for African states to promote this, to actualize this idea of Pan-African African states. The concept of citizenship, the work of citizenship to be a building block for this. And citizenship is considered from three angles: legal, sociological, and political dimension. For legal, it is regarded as the recognition of an individual by a state as a member of the state. What sociological has to do with social identity. It comes from the individual identifying himself with the state. While political dimension has to do with the interaction between this individual and the state itself in terms of paying of taxes, in terms of provision of facilities, infrastructure for the citizen as a whole. This work revealed the work of scholars like Maza, who consider citizenship from three angles: civil, political, and social rights. Same thing with ITA. ITA considered it from membership, nationality, and acquisition method. Same thing with Tilly, which considered it from category, role, and identity. And these scholars all agree that citizenship has to do with the rights of an individual to be regarded as a legal member of the state and to enjoy the privilege and the rights that exist under the constitution of the state. For this reason, African Union, like I said earlier, has has always promoted the idea of uniting the African continent in areas like political. African Union has made efforts in this regard. For instance, it made efforts in 2016 to create a common AU passport, and it has promoted mobility, integration, and shared identity on the continent through the various 8 regional economic commissions that exist on the continent. And likewise, though citizenship is not well pronounced in the Agenda 2063, but if you look at the document has been provided, it is very obvious that the argument of or the aim of the AU in the document is to create a single citizenship right for the whole continent as one. And this is based on the idea of promoting free movement of people, goods, and ideas throughout the continent. Then this work now consider the citizenship laws in Africa, and it is derived that the citizenship law in Africa again is still based on colonial divination. We are seeing a situation where citizenship is divided into two. We have citizenship by birth and we have citizenship by descent. And on this continent, there are variants of laws on the continent in respect to this. For instance, in some areas in Africa, religion is a criterion used to select who can acquire citizenship on the continent. And we gave instance of race as an example, as it is seen in Egypt, Morocco, where people of Arabian race are prevail above the African individual. And we can also see in countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, Malawi, and Egypt, where it is also based on the idea of descendants. If your progeny, your ancestors are from any of these ethnic in this area, you are likely to attain citizenship here. For religion also, which is also a significant criterion used in North Africa, we see that it is easier as for a to acquire citizenship in this area. In Egypt, Morocco, Libya, it is well stipulated that a Muslim has a greater chance of being a citizen of this country, of acquiring the citizenship of this country, ahead of the other African citizens who are basically Christian or other religion. Now, apart from this, we now look at challenges that is in hindering this achievement, challenges that is likely to make AU not to achieve this goal. We look at xenophobic attack that is going on not only in South Africa. There are xenophobic issues in Ghana against some African states, against some African citizens in all this country. Now, the integration that AU has foresaw with its documents, or foreseen for its document, that we're going to have a united Africa from the bottom-top approach. They advocate a bottom-top approach in which the individual citizens of the country will work together as one and consider themselves as one before we now arrive at the political integration in 2063. But the xenophobic culture that is spreading across the African continent is a big factor that is hindering this to be achieved. Then again, we'll consider the legal inconsistency and sovereignty concern. We could see from our study that the various laws that exist on this continent in respect to citizenship acquisition is not it's variant, and this makes it so hard for some people to acquire this despite being African, and this factor is very germane or important hindrance to AU's goal of establishing citizenship on the continent. And we could also see that AU e-passport idea that was brought up in 2016, despite that it was started to be 2020, later moved to 2030. AU has not been able to achieve this in respect to this e-passport. Only the AU officials are enjoying this passport. So the work look at the implication of this for unity. Looking at the aspiration 2 and 5 of the 7 aspiration of Agenda 2063, which centers on unity, political unity, which is Agenda 2, Agenda 5, which is cultural unity, we can find the implication is that the AU idea, aspiration 2 and 5, seems not to be achievable based on what is on ground in Africa.
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Based on what is on ground in Africa, and then we observe that there is variance in laws that govern the citizenship acquisition in Africa, And the work concludes that by saying that AU needs to take this idea beyond the AU itself and consider to put it in its curriculum of each African state and try to look at the various problems that cause xenophobic and look at how to harmonize the legal framework of citizenship in Africa. And the work concludes that this is possible if Africa can do this to achieve its Africanity by 2060. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Akilabi. We'll wait for others to present, then we'll have our general people. So please, when you are, just put down your questions and then you direct it to the appropriate author after the presentation. Thank you once again, Mr. Akilabi. Yeah, Mr. Oluwasami?
Yes, I'm here.
Your turn. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, the panelists and everyone who has come to this session to listen to us. I'll be presenting on Nigeria. Nigerians don't hate their countries. Nigeria don't hate their country, exploring nostalgia, belonging, and diasporic agency among Nigerians in the diaspora. And the work is co-authored by supervisor, Dr. Modulu Babadebo, who happens to be the chair of this session. By the way of introducing the topic, the paper explored the paradoxical relationship between Nigerian migrants and their perception of the national identity and patriotism. So why the decision to migrate is often motivated by pull and push factors such as education, safety, and economic opportunities. The migrants do not always secure their bonds with Nigeria. Instead, they inhabit a transnational space in which both national pride and identity crisis coexist. And then through this dual engagement, the diasporic Nigerians act not only as a cultural ambassador, but also as a political agent of critics, using their transborder experience to reflect on the condition within their own country. So the identity study actually premised the attachment on either the adaptation strategy to the host country, especially when they face maybe a form of alienation or discrimination in the host country, or feeling of or the feeling of alienation in exile as a panacea to homeland nationalism, or maybe quest for socio-economic and political development, as well as infrastructural development to the home country. So while existing literature have argued on possibility of severing identity connection among the migrants, given the socio-economic dynamics at home, others identify some other evidences as are highlighted above. However, there is lack of literature on the Nigerian diaspora embrace cultural pride, while remaining alert with the structural inadequacy at home. So for this study, I have three objectives. The first one is to examine how national identity is experienced and expressed among Nigerians in the diaspora. They explore the role of diasporic agency amidst the governance deficits in Nigeria. Then to interrogate the expression of nostalgia and strategies for identity preservation in the transnational space. I adopted transnationalism as a theory or theoretical underpinning for this work, which explores how Nigerian migrants maintain multi-layer connection with their homeland while navigating the home country. So for my conceptual review, I define a diaspora identity as formed through memory, adaptation, and resistance, and which you are going to see as a progress in this. We'll go to the conceptual review. Then diaspora agency, on the other hand, refers to their capacity to act, shape the narrative, and send remittances has been doing and influenced both the home and host country. So both of them are seen to be interlinked, as we are going to see as I proceed in my presentation. So for methodology, I use a qualitative design in which I interview 18 Nigerian migrant returnees. Actually, I analyze 9 of them in my current work. They were purposely selected. The interview was done between December 2024 and February 2025. I used a mixed mode interview, which has to do with combining the means of interviewing. I use Zoom, phone, and then face-to-face opportunity as the depending on their availability. Now, the first findings related to the first objective suggested that many participants expressed emotional and symbolic ties to Nigeria, but highlighted diminishing patriotic favor due to insecurity, economic hardship, poor governance, and some felt to detach emotionally despite initial patriotic intention. Nevertheless, identity symbols like language, food, and a Nigerian flag remain potent markers of national belongings, as you will see in my highlight of the interview I did. So they were saying Nigeria is recognizable beyond what we think, even in the international community said for Nigeria, there is no country like my home. Then another person said, I had the opportunity to marry a South African woman. I married from Nigeria, and so on and so forth. The second objective, diasporic agency and Nigeria governance and deficit. The initial intention was to think that maybe because of the governance crisis in Nigeria, a lot of the migrants will develop any form of attachment with Nigeria. But we discovered that even though they are aware of the governance deficit at home, some of them still they still have this confidence in their own country. Sort of, for instance, they still try to preserve their cultural values, maintain family tradition, create a diasporic organization to bridge the home and host countries divide. Sometimes somebody said, it's where the participants said it is leadership that is our problem. So we are supposed to have been bigger than this. Then in diaspora, someone said there's no community support. We found strength among ourselves. And then another person said ethnic segregation failed in diaspora. Therefore, the third objective discovered that the nostalgia leads to identity preservation among the Nigeria, especially despite the structural and emotional challenges faced abroad. And many Nigerians maintain strong emotional and cultural ties, as I'm going to see in the next slide, as I'm going to show. And so nostalgia emerged as a double-edged sword, both as a source of identity and a coping strategy, that is emotional therapy, especially for some of them. So many migrants celebrated Nigerian culture abroad through food, clothing, language, and religious practice. And even though in the face of discrimination, they still start pride in Nigerian heritage, fostering continuity across a generation. Please, can you please play the video in the next slide? So this is a video of someone.
You have 2 more minutes.
All right,
you have 2 more minutes.
Yes, sir. This video, you can play it on. Okay, so when you play that video, actually you will see when he was the side that America was dancing. He was dancing because somebody was in Illinois in the US. And someone just came from nowhere, was reciting his story key. And then as a result of that, the person was speaking, and you see the connection between him in diaspora and home. So let me just read some of the excerpts of what he said. He said, unexpectedly, he began to perform the Oriki praise poem of Ibadan, my home ancestral. I rushed from my seat, went straight to him, and began to pay him honorably. In addition to Amala, Oriki is another bigger witness of man. That is Professor Adrian saying that. Said, if you want to take my money with little resistance, just call me Shola. Multiple times, ask some lines from Ibadan Oriki. mention my mother's origin, call me Baba Olekpako, so on and so forth. So, and you can always see that he always refer to himself as Papa Oshufu of Ibarola. All these have made him to, reference he had in the diaspora, have made him to forget about folk. But you see the kind of connection, even this NSA program is organizing Nigeria, it's also a form of connection that he had with Nigeria. So, in conclusion, the study shows that Nigeria abroad remain emotionally invested in the nation despite the critical field of leadership. And to harness diaspora transformation and potential, the Nigerian government especially should engage diaspora as a full stakeholder and not just as a remittance sender. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oluwasami, for your presentation. Yeah, again, we still wait. Mr. Oji.
All right, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, Oji Ifan is my name from Babcock University.
Okay.
I am here to interrogate the topic, socio-political and economic exclusion embedded in the current visa regimes as it affects Nigerians. Now, in the recent times, there used to be jubilation or celebration when we hear that people have gotten visa to travel or migrate to other parts of the country, other parts of the world, especially the western parts of the world. The euphoria of this celebration most times overshadow the sufferings, the challenges that people undergo while applying or through the process of the visa applications. In other words, while globalization is celebrated for shrinking distances and fostering interconnectedness, Nigeria and other citizens from the global south often face discriminate barriers when attempting to cross these borders. And these are visible through visa regimes. Okay. Every now and then we keep hearing the countries that most Nigerians are migrating coming up with stiffer visa regulations to either make it impossible or frustrate most Nigerians who are aspiring or who desire to migrate. Now, this paper will want to examine the multifaceted exclusion embedded in the contemporary visa regimes as it affects Nigerians. It explores how socio-political biases, economic disparities, and neocolonial structures manifest through visa policies imposed by the foreign governments and how these policies perpetuate systematic discrimination against Nigerian citizens. Historically, some scholars will argue that this visa regime has been a colonial legacy bequeathed to the Nigerian states, that in the colonial regime, freedom of movement was not a right, rather it was a privilege, because as we see in the colonial settings, there were areas that were named reserved areas. So it's a privilege to go towards those areas. So those kind of mentality had also continued into the current dispensation that we have. So the modern visa system reflects this colonial era that controls where movement should go and where movement should not go. Also, despite political independence, African countries like Nigeria remain entangled in unequal mobility arrangements that favor former colonial powers other than Nigerians. So some scholars have come up to argue in different ways. Scholars have argued that restrictive visa policies imposed on Nigerians reflects enduring colonial hierarchies as a threat, reinforcing global racialized border and limiting access to education, trade, and diplomacy. Other school of thought, some other scholars have highlighted how visa system privileges make citizens of the global north as give privileges to the citizens of global north while systematically excluding those from the global south. This creates mobility apathy, where Nigerians face excessive scrutiny, financial burdens, and arbitrary denial whenever they are applying for these visas. So the argument that this paper is trying to come up to look at the socio-political biases on visa decisions that as it affects Nigerians. One of the things is discriminatory presumptions. Many visa regimes operate on assumptions. Oh, Nigerian travelers are this and that, or they pose risk of overstay, that they are fraud, that they are seeking asylum, that they are, in fact, we are being stereotyped. So this automatically disqualify even the qualified ones that are supposed to get this visa. They will just blanket, oh, this one, maybe he will not come back again when he travels. So we will deny him the visa. Also, nationality as risk indicator. Studies have also indicated that visa rejection rates are disproportionately higher for Nigerians, especially among students and skilled professionals. So once you appear before any of the foreign embassies and you present yourself as a Nigerian student or automatic, in fact, many of them they will not even be need for them to even interview you. They will just give you outright rejections. Geographical punishments. So these visa restrictions are sometimes used as punitive measures in response to political or security disagreements between the countries. So countries that feel that they are having issues with Nigeria will now met it out on the people or the citizens of Nigeria that are applying for their country visas. However, we have also not taken account of the loss that Nigerians who are applying are incurring. To apply for visa now, let's take a UK visa, for instance. We pay a lot of money. And in also preparing to apply for this visa, we see a situation where people will now go and look for what we tag proof of funds. Now, in this proof of funds, you will have a certain amount of money in your account, at least to show that you must have that you are not going to run away or that you are capable of financing your trip. For Nigerian students that are applying, for instance, for UK visa, it's expected that you have up to about 40 to 50 million currently before you can apply for a UK visa, for instance. This is irrespective of the flight tickets and other things as the case may be. So while Nigerians face intense scrutiny, citizens of Western nations enjoy visa free. You know, many of them, they just carry their passport and they cross the border without anybody even accosting them or where is your visa and all that. So we are now trying to look at this political and economic implications of these strict visa regimes that Nigerians are facing whenever
2 more minutes.
Are
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Whenever they are applying for It's okay, sir. It's okay, sir. So some of the gaps that the study had identified is a lack of Nigerian focused empirical research that quantify the number of visa rejection, the rate of visa rejections that Nigeria. You cannot enter any. The Nigerian Bureau of Statistics cannot say as at this moment that so number of Nigerians have been denied visa by so country and so country. So we want to bridge that gap. We also want to look at the economic loss and the psychological impacts on this on the applicants who are denied this visa as a result of the regimes. So in conclusion, visa regimes are not just paperwork. They are symbolic and structural extension of global power dynamics. For Nigeria to secure equitable treatment, there must be a coordinated domestic and international strategy to challenge these exclusions. This is what the paper will try to look at the various policies and prioritize dignity and reciprocity and fairness for all Nigerian applicants that are applying for the various visas across the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haji. Thanks for your presentation. I'll get back to you when others have done. Yeah, now, Yvonne. Is Yvonne around? From Colorado University, are you around?
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm around, sir. Tell him be quietly. Can you hear me, sir?
Who is around, please?
The world is around, sir. Not you, but the name is Joel Oba from Paradise University.
Okay, go ahead. You have the floor. You have 10 minutes.
All right, good morning, everyone. The title of my paper is Mapping Identity Renegotiation Through Return Migration in Yvonne Adjambo-Obio's Dust from the lens of literary analysis. The paper is basically looking at what we call Japada in Nigeria, Nigerian phenomenon, by using realistic literature as a mirror of life and society itself. Looking at the background to this particular study, contemporary African literature increases the complex phenomenon of migration through its recurrent reflection, reflecting the continent's evolving patterns of mobility, displacements, and return. The migration narratives have become a significant feature of post-colonial African literature, with themes of exile, diaspora, and displacement permeating numerous works from the continent. But the problem lies in this. While much scholarly attention has been devoted to narratives of exodus, which is migrating and leaving the country, a comparative lens or critical lens that focus on return migration have been underexplored. And it looks at the voluntary and involuntary movement of immigrants back to their countries of origin. This is what return migration is all about. And the scholar Giuliani Sinati in 2015 observed that return migration represents a significant yet underexplored dimension of contemporary African mobility that carries profound implications for cultural identity formation. The primary text, Yvonne Adjambo-Obio's novel, Dust, offers a compelling exploration of this phenomenon through its protagonist, Ajani Oganda, who returns to Kenya from Brazil following her brother's tragic death. Through Ajani's journey, Obio crafts a narrative that positions return migration not merely as a physical journey, but as a transformative process of identity renegotiation that operates across personal, familial, and national dimensions put together. For the research questions of this study, we have the following questions being considered. How does Dust portray identity renegotiation through return migration? In what way does Ajani's Brazilian experience disrupt Kenyanness? How does the metaphor of dust function in identity reconstruction? And how does personal return intersect with national historical trauma? We'll find out all of these in this study. The theoretical framework deals with Stuart Hall's identity as positioning and becoming, not being, meaning that identity is not fixed. It is a process of renegotiation by the specificity of the situation on return. Outerbrow's diaspora space is also incorporated as a site of intersecting identities. The point at which boundaries of inclusion and exclusion of belonging and otherness of us and them are contested and renegotiated is what Outerbrow's diaspora space talks about. Edward Said's contrapuntal awareness is also considered in this particular discourse, which looks at the simultaneous engagement with multiple perspectives, and the emphasis on identity as being dynamic, relational, and historically embedded at the point of renegotiation during the Japada process. Methodology: this study employs closed textual analysis informed by the post-colonial and diaspora theories mentioned to examine how obvious literary techniques articulate the psychological complexities of return migration. Then literary analysis being adopted offers a distinctive advantage for understanding return migration experiences beyond what sociological or anthropological approaches might capture. As Walpole in 2015 argued, literary narratives have a unique capacity to represent the subjective dimensions of migration experiences, particularly the nonlinear, fragmented nature of identity formation in the context of displacement. Now, looking at the textual analysis and the findings of this research, we have the first heading: return migration and cultural dislocation. Ajani's time in Brazil reshaped her worldview and artistic sensibilities. That's what happens to migrants when they return. Her return is marked by estrangement and reevaluation of self. It also illustrates Brown's notion of home being both mythic and lived space. Home is mythic when imagined as a space of origin, purity, or cultural rootedness, often idealized in memory or longing. It is lived in the everyday realities of return, shaped by shifting relationships, exclusions, and contradictions. For returnees like Ajani and us Africans, the mythic home does not align with the lived experience, leading to identity dislocation and the need for renegotiation. False ruptures and discontinuities manifest in this situation, Ajani's sense of self. The next one is the dust metaphor in the novel. Dust serves as a symbol of both concealment and revelation. Physical dust evokes the layered temporality of identity and memory. Like when dust blows away matter on the floor, it just shows how temporal identity can be. At the point of return migration and migration itself, it changes. It's not fixed, but undergoes street of transformation. Then the dust storms in the novel parallel moments of narrative and emotional upheaval, the tensions returnees deal with that inform their renegotiation of their character. Identity is also shown as being palimpsetic. What we mean by palimpsetic means being shaped by accretion, which is gradual increase through accumulation of migrant experiences and exposure. And this informs the renegotiation of the character of the returnee. The dust metaphor also provides a conceptual framework for understanding how identity reconstruction through return migration involves both processes of uncovering what has been obscured and accumulating new layers of experience and meaning. We'll get to that in detail. Now we look at the national history and personal memory at the course of the analysis. Ajani's personal loss intersects with Kenya's post-election trauma. Family silences mirror national amnesia about colonial and ethnic violence. Return catalyzes truth-seeking and confrontation of hidden histories. Returnees act as critical witnesses to unresolved collective trauma. I will explain basically. Ajani's investigation into our brother's death in the novel encounters words of silence, just like what we see in our historical traumas and things we don't want to deal with historically, like Nigerian Civil War, for instance. In our case, family members and community members and government officials are reluctant to speak about the circumstances surrounding the killing of our brother. These personal silences mirror broader national silences surrounding historical atrocities, from colonial violence to post-independence ethnic conflict. All right, as historian Louis White documents, Kenyan national history has been profoundly shaped by strategic silences. Oyo portrays return migration as potentially disrupting these silences, and returnees often bring questions and perspectives that challenge accepted narratives, as we see most times. So having been distant from these silences during her time in Brazil, Identity returns with a heightened awareness of their presence and a determination to break through them. This portrayal exemplifies what Hall describes as ruptures and discontinuities that shape cultural identity formation, with return migration creating conditions for challenging established historical narratives. Even the ones we have in Nigeria, migrants are in the position to challenge these established narratives. Like the reduction of corruption, for instance, in Nigerian situations can be negotiated by such migrants with a worldwide overview of situations. Overall portrayal of reconciliation is also worth noting, both personal and national. Further, it demonstrates the intersection between individual identity reconstruction and collective historical processes. Throughout the narrative, her journey towards reconciliation with family and her emotionally distant father parallels broader national movements towards reconciliation following the post-election violence. And these processes involve acknowledging painful histories, breaking strategic silence, and establishing new foundations for relationships. These are what return migrations and migrants must navigate through. This part is what the anthropologist Lisa Malkin described as killer relationality of identity processes, where the same dynamics operate at different scales of social life. Now we move there. Through her character, Oyo suggests that return migrants can contribute distinctively to national reconciliation processes, like I've been saying. And that the national perspectives provide resources for remembering differently in ways that facilitate new forms of relationships in societies. Then in the novel, we see art as a medium of identity mediation, because this particular character was an artist, he's an artist. Her artwork embodies cultural hybridity and memory work. The studio she works becomes a diaspora space for negotiating and healing, combines Kenyan and Brazilian aesthetic vocabulary and enables cross-generational and cross-cultural communication. I'll explain this part briefly. Artists use their art as a means of communication. Returning migrants most times may not be able to communicate their new perception of self and their worldview verbally. And most of them are no more versed in their languages, their local languages. And it helps when they have a means of art that can actually articulate the complexities of their worldview. And it brings inspiration to returnees as well. So the combination of their experiences inspire their artistic creation. So return migrants can also use this positively towards a better life of productivity. That's what the study is telling us, that they can act as inspirational entities. Now,
you have 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Yes, sir. Non-linear narrative structure is used, which mimics fragmented identity. And the use of symbolism, interior monologue, and aesthetic reflection in the novel is also utilized. Literary form mirrors thematic concerns with displacement and return. And it offers subjective insight that complements sociological readings and of migration, giving us the complexities. Now, the current contribution of this study, it shifts from diaspora to return migration in African literature. The shift has now been reflected towards return migration, which is Jabada, because the idea of the reflection of all these things of migration, leaving the country, is paramount towards looking at the home return as well as the complexities involved. It challenges essentialist readings of home and belonging. Belonging is not final when they return, and return is also not final. It's a complex process and requiring process of renegotiation. It enriches migration theory through literary analysis. The study does that, and it positions thus as a key post-colonial memory discourse. The findings contribute to all of these. Thus, brings return migration as complex identity negotiation, as we have seen. Paul and Brown's frameworks reveal hybridity in the character of the returnees, rupture in their previous cultural identity, and multiplicity in their perception and experiences as well. Another study underscores personal and national reconciliation processes, meaning that returning migrants can help a nation towards a process of reconciliation if given the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Oba. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Mojirayo Patricia Ibamiji, it's your turn. You're speaking on language and politics of affect in advocacy on transborder migration. Ibamiji, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Moji Oyebamiji. The title of this topic is Language and Politics of Affect in Advocacy on Transborder Migration. Now, this study set out to look for the advocacy in support of migration. We have some advocacies that actually talk about trying to encourage people leaving their country to another country. But our focus is not on that. Our focus is based on the advocacy that is in support of leaving your present country and migrating to another country. Migration is the background to the study. Migration is a universal phenomenon embedded. Yes. So embedded across all human societies, reflecting a fundamental aspect of human nature. It is relocating of individuals from one place to another, involving a permanent or semi-permanent change of residence. There are so many factors that can lead people to relocate, such as economic, social factor, cultural environment, health, education, displacement, security, and so on and so forth. So this study explores the interplay between language and politics of affect within the advocacy surrounding transborder migration. And the objectives are to identify linguistic choices and rhetorical strategies employed by the advocate, that is the producer of the advocate, analyze the emotional resonance of advocacy narratives surrounding transborder migration. Several studies have worked on both advocacy and migration. We have Okeshola 2024 examine social advocacy embedded in the musical composition of Segun Akinlolu, popularly known as Beautiful Nubia. We have Malawi and Fare 2023 investigated the role of language in advocacy on Annan Ashwi speeches using SFF. We also have Bodge 2020 explored the value of century literature in migration studies. But this present study is concentrating on the approach of migration advocacy through the lens of affect, a subfield of appraisal theory, highlighting the emotional and evaluative dimension of migrant discourse. The study is wants to use a descriptive qualitative approach, and our primary data were drawn from 5 different videos on the advocacy. They were purposely selected and downloaded from YouTube sites. They were transcribed from video clip to written text and analyzed accordingly. And the analysis was done using Martins and White 2005 appraisal theory. Now, the conceptual and theoretical framework. We talk about advocacy. Advocacy has to do with the active support of an individual or cause operationalized through strategies and methods aimed at influencing opinions, decisions of individual, organizations, and so on. So it facilitates access to information, promoting understanding of rights, encouraging autonomous decision, and so on. Also, talking about appraisal theory is an evaluative theory provided by Martins and White. It deals with the evaluation, how to evaluation is established, amplified, targeted, and sought. It also allows us to explore how values, emotions, and judgments are conveyed and how they shape the meaning and tone of communication. Appraisal theory has analytical tools, which are attitude, engagement, and graduation. So from attitude, that is where we have the affects. So these affects, this with attitude, this with the expression of feelings and value, either negative or positive, either you are aligned or disaligned. Then engagement relates how speakers or writers interact with other voices and viewpoints, while graduation works through two mechanisms. First, which adjust the intensity of a feeling or statement. But this study wants to make use of the attitude aspect of it, which also has a kind of subfield, which is affect. And affect is the dominant framework that we are using for the analysis. It's centrally concerned with the linguistic expression of emotional states, either positive or negative. It also functions as a critical resource for construing personal reaction, and it allows speakers or writers to position themselves within a spectrum of emotional responses. So from our findings, we have effective words that are connoting happiness, and there are so many extracts here. We have, you can move with your family. With this is categorized based on our theory, which is the theory of affect and quality. Start applying for job. I'm so amazed how people are helping each other. This indicates a strong positive emotional reaction. We also have a statement like, I'm so blessed that I'm here in Canada. This shows a feeling of good fortune and happiness. Canada is still the best on earth to survive and to live. This shows high positive evaluation tied to life satisfaction. And so we also, from the findings, we also have the affective words that connote security. And we have instances like, you never be shy, that you need help and they will help you. This is authorial, affect of quality, and the comment suggests emotional safety and openness. We also have expressions like, they treated you like human being. This is affect as quality, authorial, and it signals emotional comfort and respect. We also have traffic rules. You need to abide the law. That is, there is a security through structure and discipline. We also have affective words that connote satisfaction. These are there are instances here. I'm okay for what I received. That is satisfaction despite hardship. Politics here in Canada is less corrupt. Drivers are disciplined. We treated them equally. Same room for everyone. This is appraisal of affect as behavioral process and signifies satisfaction with equality in care. You can never look people down. That is another example, which is affect as common emotional satisfaction with egalitarianism. You can buy car. You can buy your own house, car, and so on and so forth. So life fulfillment and satisfaction. Discussion of findings. So the analyzed transcript presents a structured, effectively charged narrative aimed at guiding potential migrants towards countries perceived as having lower migration barrier. It constructs affect not only as an emotional response, but also as a persuasive tool for influencing decision-making process. The affective appeal spans several categories, from emotional and evaluation to rational, creating a multifaceted persuasive discourse. Conclusion. The study analyzed the critical role of language in shaping the qualities of affect within advocacy discourse on transborder generation. by analyzing the linguistic choices and rhetorical strategy employed by the producer advocates, and the research revealed how effective elements are strategically deployed to elicit empathy, compassion, and solidarity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I want to appreciate all the presenters, the 5 presenters we have in this session, and they all presented very well, topical issues and issues that we engender further discussion. Any question for the presenters? Just signify, let me know those. If you want to ask any question, for those who are inside the hall, you can go ahead and ask your question. For those who are online, just signify that you want to ask a question. Yes, anyone, go ahead. And please indicate the person you are directing that particular question to.
Thank you very much, Prof. Just a little observation. The paper by Dowell, I did not see the actual theoretical framework that the presenter has tackled. I know he has made mention of literary analysis, textual analysis, but these arguments around, I wanted to have a particular theoretical trajectory. And I understood that he made mention of 1 or 2 scholars and their contribution. So I have not received a particular theoretical framework for his work. And I have seen that he has entered into probably postcolonial and psychoanalytical frameworks, except he has not come up with something. I did not, maybe in his paper, but in his presentation, he did do that. And I have to quickly mention that it was a very great presentation, and I really like it. And then secondly, on the last presentation by Moji Rayo, I have to commend you for a wonderful presentation. Concerning the scope, I understand that you presented on some selected videos. We want you to be specific. What kind of videos? Are these skits? Is it a movie? Is it a speech? Did you grab it, or did you cut a section or coin it from a movie? So that specificity, I think, will enrich your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Yes, you can respond.
Okay, yes.
Query?
Theory is Stuart Hall's theory of cultural identity. It's a post-colonial theory, actually. They also use a theoretical concept under migration theory called diaspora spaces by After Bra. So I made use of Stuart Hall's cultural identity and then After Bra's diaspora space. That's the theory of Supreme Court. One under post-colonial, one under migration studies. The first one, cultural identity under post-colonial studies, while the second one is a migration theory. It's called diaspora space by After Brand. That's the things I use. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Oyebamiji, who's next?
Yes, the question said I should be specific about the kind of video. The video clip actually drawn from YouTube, and mostly they were done by the whites to lure, possibly to appeal to the emotion of Africans, that their country will provide better life, better opportunity for them. So, but I will look for how I will point the video in such a way that it will be limited and will be specific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes,
Next.
someone has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is yeah. So I just have a question, and the question is for all the presenters. I enjoy all the presentations, and I'm so glad that I'm here in this room. And my question is predicated upon the fact that all the presenters are making some theories, several theories to explain why people have been migrating, especially Africans moving out of Africa into the Western world, particularly. And I think that the theories being used are they not just going to look like mere academic exercise if we don't if we don't talk or emphasize on the push and pull theory on its own? I heard one of the presenters make use of the push and pull theory, because basically migration is something that is universal. Whether you are in Europe, whether you are in Africa, maybe within Europe itself, there are a lot of people migrating, moving from one place to another. But in the case of Africa, moving from Africa particularly to Europe, I think we should concentrate much, or let me say specific emphasis should be placed on the push and pull factors. People who migrated from Africa, or who are still migrating, or who still have the intention of migrating, I think the basic thing is that some of them, having moved to where they moved to, still face a lot of issues ranging from discrimination, harsh weather, inability to settle down, lack of adequate integration wherever they get to. So I think because of the basic issues that could be found, the basic amenities, facilities, infrastructures, and opportunities that could be found over there largely contribute to reasons why people migrate. Like, let me cite an example of Lagos. Even in Nigeria, let me cite an example of Lagos. There are several people who move from the hinterland to Lagos. Lagos is the smallest city in Nigeria in terms of land mass, in 3,755 square kilometer or so. It's the smallest, but it is the most populated. Why? What are the push and pull factors? Does it mean there are no better lives over there in the hinterland that makes people to move to Lagos? So I want to ask this question: that is there any way emphasis can be better placed on the push and pull factors rather than several other convoluted migration theory to explain the issue of migration? Thank you very much.
Thank you, my brother. I align with your side, because what I wanted to raise earlier, which I want the presenters to address along, is that is there no way we can get a kind of a specific theoretical construct to explain migration in Africa, migration out of Africa, especially in recent times? Because situating migration in Africa within the context of the general conception of migration is misleading. And because we are being forced out. You see bankers leaving their plum job to go to America, go to Europe, to go and do things, work jobs that are even less dignified, simply because of money. Is there no way of understanding or coming out with a scholarship concept or explanation to understand the real factors behind Africans moving to Europe or Europe or America or anywhere? Yes, that is a challenge to all presenters. Can I be calling one by one? Aklabi, yes? Your response?
Thank you, sir. In that respect, I would like to first say that migration itself is not a new thing in Africa today. even before the advent of colonialism, we did see migration on intra-African migration. And basically, it's a challenge to us also as African scholars to start looking inward and develop theories. And for me, I don't believe in God's theory of relative deprivation as one of the factors that push migration in Africa. I consider it that migration is natural in Africa, and we need to start looking at our cultural aspect, the sociocultural aspect of Africa, to develop a theory that will give us a clear answer to this issue of migration. Like you said about the doctors leaving Nigeria to do a less dignified job in Nigeria, I think it's banned on cultural angle of people believing in this saying that a greener pasture, there's a greener pasture is better than home and this and then. There's also an African belief that a child cannot develop in his homeland unless he's moved out of his fatherland. So for me, and like you said, it's a challenge to us. I'm also going to sit down and look at it from the angle of this perspective of culture. It doesn't mean that our culture also allows us to move outside our own vicinity, homeland. Is it the culture that is affecting this movement, or is it the economic aspect? I don't want to agree with economic basically, but I want to agree that there is a cultural perspective of Africans that believe that we cannot excel in our own land. And there's a Yoruba proverb to that, which I cannot remember now, that if you are living in a place where you are born and brought up, you are likely not going to develop or achieve a lot unless you move outside the vicinity to another place. This could be an explanation, but I'm not saying it's an empirical fact to support the migration we experience in modern days, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll put that to test, but one thing I know is that if you, okay, I will give an example later. Mr. Luasami, yes? Mr. Luasami, it's your turn. Mr. Luasami, your response?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, to that general to that question posed to all the presenters.
All right, thank you, sir. Actually, the reason why, like in my own presentation, I actually mentioned the issue of push and pull factor, but it's not my theoretical framework because that's not basically the theme of my work. But it's also a very good theory that can explain the reason for migration. But in the context of the 21st century, I believe that people are now developing a theory around the concept of Japa, just more than the fact that people are living, people are looking at the socio-cultural perspective of it. People are looking at the issue of identity and so on and so forth. So I think it just depends on the area you are looking at, the issue of migration, like the topic presented by Dr. Joe. So we are now even moving beyond just ordinary migration. People are talking about return migration, reverse migration, and all sorts of that, which push and pull factor may not actually capture. So migration has gone beyond just the moving out. People are now seeing it from different perspectives, and especially from identity perspective and all that. So it depends on the area somebody is looking at it from. And
okay, why we are even looking at it from the perspective of identity? Why the question is, why will someone get pregnant in Nigeria and spend so much money to travel to America to go and give birth in America? Not that it's working in America, but just go and give birth there so that to give the child American citizens. Why that? What is the is that culture? Is that part of cultural of our culture, Mr. Oji?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. You can see that it's a fact now that, like you rightly pointed out, that even people that have bank managers and captains of industries will resign their job, sell up everything that they have, and move and migrate. So the question is why, which is what the theory we are trying we will also be adopting in this our studies, because we will be interrogating why, despite all the visa regimes, despite all the conditions, Nigerians are still determined to migrate. So one of the theories that we think we fit into this study is what the theory of relative deprivation theory. Now you see that in the Nigerian context, you see that exclusion, deprivation is now now when people perceived inequality or when people see that they are excluded from the legits, that only the politicians or those that are within the corridors of power are those that are enjoying the good things of the country, security and otherwise. They are just so when others are deprived of all these essential, so that will now fuel frustration, it will fuel resistance, and also lead to migration. Okay, let me leave this place for them and go to a place I think I will have my cool and my peace. So relative deprivation theory will sit very well in this study that we are trying to do. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Oba.
Yes, sir. Dr. Oba. Okay. Based on what he said, relational deprivational theory, I think that kind of context would work. In my opinion, like I've observed in the course of these studies, we have the privileged Nigerians or Africans, people that travel out of privilege, and those that travel out of not having privilege. So it depends on the context. Some are traveling based on the fact that they have the opportunity to travel for further education. All right, and you can understand that if somebody has money, of course, you want the best life for yourself. Those people that travel for privilege are trying to ensure the best life for themselves. That's why they travel that their wives are brought to give birth. It's the reason. So for a theoretical framework for migration, they should put it based on the context of the migrant. Is it a privileged migrant that's been captured, or the underprivileged migrants that have been captured, which is the popularity of Nigerians or majority of Nigerians are the underprivileged migrants. And they have the same, basically or relatively the same reasons for traveling. So they should just make it specific. You want to give a framework, make it specific to both categories of migrants, both the privileged and underprivileged. That's my opinion.
Thank you. What's your take?
Thank you, sir. And I want to address the issue of traveling abroad to go and deliver the baby. For me, I think it's still part of our colonial mentality that the Africans, we believe that it's an achievement for us to travel abroad to go, despite the fact that we accept the fact that our governments, they are not really doing well in terms of healthcare and all that. But yes, we still have this colonial mentality that it is an achievement for us if we go out there to go and deliver the baby and all that. And talking about the aspects of the theory of push and pull factor that Dr. Mayowa mentioned. During the course of my research, I read a lot of articles on push and pull. So people have actually exhausted that area. They've done a lot of work on that area. So I think it depends on the area that we want to look out and we want to address the issue of migration that will determine the kind of theory that. But in terms of that pull and pull, push and pull, people have worked extensively in that area. Thank you. That's my submission.
Thank you, Ibamiji. And seriously speaking, as scholars, I think there's a need for us to interrogate the area of thinking about African theory of migration. I'm an African scholar, and when we talk in terms of migration, in general connotation, what is happening in Nigeria or in most African countries at this particular point in time is not what I can call migration. Why? Because we have. Come again.
Yeah. All right.
We have. You want to say, I'm coming. I'm coming. What I want to say now is that I want us to advance. I want us to draw our mind to that perspective of developing an African context theory to explain migration, whereby we have enough resources that could cater for issue of the push and pull factor. We have the money, we have the resources. But the major problem we have is that even our leaders, most of our leaders are not even Nigerians. They are dual citizens. They are dual citizens. They know what is happening in other country, but they come to the country to our country, make use, take all those resources, waste the resources, put people in penury, and then force them to get out of the country to become slaves in what I call a kind of a modernized slavery, because it's like we are running. People said, well, like what Obamji said, what people are saying. Home is better than abroad. Yes, because we have all the facilities. But in terms of comfort, is it better off? People prefer, okay, well, I prefer to go and be a gate man over there where I enjoy life than to be the chief executive here where I don't enjoy life. Look at what is happening in Benue State. When over 200 people are killed and then it's as if nothing happened. So what are we talking about? Let's look at, do these empirical studies. Rather than this desktop study on migration, let's do empirical study to know why are the people leaving? Especially for those who have good jobs, why are they leaving? And so, these are scholars of African politics. Yes, the comments. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. My name is Dr. Bukola Oduola. I want to appreciate all the presenters who had beautiful topics, beautiful contributions, sir. I also want to align myself with you saying that we come up with African theories that address our specific context in terms of migration. And I want to suggest that for any of the presenters that we are listening to, they are using they have beautiful theories. But there's what we call the grounded theory, whereby your data involves its own kind of theory. And that should be the discourse, because as part of that, not one type of theory will satisfy our own African context. So in essence, we may not have, as it were, an African theory or a grounded theory that is situated within the work, the context of how that work was carried out. Now we address the peculiarity of our research. And I also have a question for which I think is not a question. He mentioned my brother who did the study on Jack Patter. And one of your reports in the quotes, you were quoting for us quotes from Professor Said Aderito on what he said. I would also say, because there's what we call ethics. Did you get consent for us here? If you are safe, but if we are sharing that data outward, where is the ethical consideration in that? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Shinobi Sherifat. Sir, I will align with your position on African theory. Although you are one of my former teachers at Toba Federal University. Sir, I think it is high time for all the African scholars to start looking at the African problem, African peculiarity based on our own system, because there is no way we continue to fall in line with all these foreign theories, and we think all those theories will stand enough to answer most of the challenges confronting Africa, because Africa has its own peculiarity. And there is no way we can look at the African issue from modern perspective. Just like Africans that study law and study everything based on European law, European everything, European constitution. I want to apply European constitution to African problem. So to be a serious issue. Then another thing is to begin to conceptualize poverty. What is poverty? In what terms have we defined poverty? Poverty is a living being. Is it a living actor? If it's not a living actor, why we so believe that whatever problem, whatever things, whatever challenges we are confronting in Africa, everything is based on poverty? Poverty is not a human being. It's not something that somebody is offended or has offended me. Let me introduce poverty to his or her life. So we need to begin to interrogate what poverty is. In what sense are we defining our own poverty? Then, when we're talking about migration, sir, migration is a complex and a multi-dimensional issue. In what way are we defining our context? In what way are we contextualizing it? Are we looking at the migration from sense of irregularity? Are we defining it from the concept of smuggling? Are we defining it from the concept of human trafficking? Because if you look at the migration, everything is migration, migration, migration. Not all of them that are voluntarily migrated to irrespective location they found themselves. Some they were like, oh, don't worry. When we get there, try to relocate first. You will find yourself. So until when such person goes to that place, we will now discover that he has been sold out from his own country to another place. And when you want to tap that one too, we will look at it from the perspective of migration. Sir, my own point here is let's try to reconceptualize most of our concepts. Let's know which points are we defining it. Even the issue of push and pull factors are no longer the way we're looking at it before. Because most of the people that are migrating now, to some extent, they are rich. Because when you are spending like 40 million, 20 million, 45 million to relocate, and you are saying that you are poor, in what sense are you poor? So, sir, I think Africans need to wake up. Just like when we are defining decolonization, we're talking about decolonization, and European country were the ones sponsoring our decolonization. Are we decolonizing or we recolonizing? So those are the issues we need to begin to interrogate one after the other. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for reminding me of my days in Ife. You can get my contact from Peter, and then we'll be able to talk. But seriously speaking, we look at it. Even when we look at the concept of Japa is not migration. If you deconstruct Japa, is more than migration. Because migration is something that, okay, maybe I remember when I was still in Ife, that some of our professors will leave during holidays. They will go to America, go to the library, do everything, come back home. But when people leave now, nobody comes back again. I remember coming to Nigeria, people said, what are you doing? What are you coming here to do in Nigeria? So for what? It's my home. Why not? Why not going back home? Simply, let's look more on this. Let's interrogate more. Let's take, like what you said, leave the Eurocentric conception of migration and look at the African conception of migration in light of the context of what we have right now. I think that is very, very important. Yeah.
We have
any other comments? Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, everyone. I want to take my comments based on what the last speakers and what we've all been saying. I agree that we should have African concepts, African theory for African problems. But we must be careful not to fall into the same problem of homogenizing spaces. So there is no one African problem, and no one African theory can be fitting for African problem. Africa is made up of 50 whatever countries. And so even in Nigeria, for example, there are various reasons why people would migrate. And you find out that there's many concepts, for example, or theories that can fit into this. And I tie this comment to the first presenter who talked about African identity. And when he was presenting, I was asking, is there a single African identity? I feel that concept is problematic because how do you begin to capture different identities, into one single concept? But well, I'm here to learn, so maybe you would have a response to that. Thank you.
All right, one more intervention, sir.
Well, there's nothing wrong in having African identity. We have, for instance, we have Europe identity, and Europe cut across many countries. So we can have African identity. One thing I want us to understand is that the problem we have in Africa today, in terms of disunity, is not only because of colonization, but because the political elite who inherited it, they benefited from it. So they benefited from that disunity. So we are all Africans by our culture, by our color, by so many things. We have it. As we have it, for instance, if you go to Asia, you have the Asian culture, the unity. You have the Europeans, you have the Americans. So there's nothing wrong with that. It is time for us to right the wrong the wrongs created by colonialism. And the reason why Africa is when Akalabi was talking in terms of AU, African unity, and all the rest, yes, these are age-long things that shouldn't have happened. Anyway, there shouldn't be anything like disunity. But because of the mismanagement of our domestic resources, we've made ourselves vulnerable. Our government, our leaders have made us vulnerable to this kind of all manner of treatment that we have. If we are all good, if we are well, why do you need to migrate? How many times have you ever seen Americans struggling to migrate down to Africa? Or how many times have you ever seen people in Europe forcing themselves to come to America, to Africa? Simply because the life here is not inhabitable for them. Because why are we going there? People are going there because the government of those countries, they manage their country very well. If Africa managed its own country very well, why would we need to be rushing out? There would be a need for jackpot. If you want to migrate, you just migrate for pleasure. That's all. But not this kind of what we are having today. What we are having today is a crisis. It's a crisis. It's a major crisis. Many people have lost their lives trying to cross the Atlantic, trying to cross the desert in the name of getting out of that country. What is that thing that's keeping them from there? Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
I want to disagree with you on a number of things.
Okay.
One, just like the last speaker said, Appiah said, he wrote a book and he said, in my father's house, in contrasting Wole Soyinka, that there is more than one way of being an African. Africa is not a country. We should be careful not to make Africa a monolithic entity. There are different countries, even in Nigeria. You can't say there is a Nigerian view because that was how Appiah countered Soyinka. Like the biblical allusion that in my father's house there are many mansions. So there are different countries in Africa, and different cultural imperatives apply to different people. Even the Arab cannot be monolithic because the Maghreb is actually different from the Middle East, even though they share commonality. So in this, it becomes important for us to look at the fact that there are peculiar challenges facing different societies. As at today, Nigerians rank as one of the most set of educated Africans. So you would say that homegrown education institution in Nigeria is self-sufficient. But yet, we ask the question, why are we still going out? So the fact that people go under the guise of education does not mean they are educated. I mean, they are seeking education. You understand? There's the push and pull factor, like one of the commentators said. But even in the push and pull factor, it is still the same. There is something pushing you away from home, and there's something pulling you abroad. However, in migration studies, we have different kinds. There are normative migrants, there are cosmopolitan migrants. A penny or $10 today is the cosmopolitan migrant. He can get on the yacht and he can fly anywhere. Only a woman can go anywhere. Probably you can go anywhere you want to go to. You are a normative migrant. I mean, you're a cosmopolitan migrant. I mean, a normative migrant.
then I might be what we call an imperative migrant. So migration in itself, it is dynamic. Asia, the same Asia story that has success stories with Korea, with Singapore, has terrible story with Myanmar, with Cambodia, with other countries. So there is no single way of being African. And all in all, we should recognize the fact that the peculiar challenge that each state or space faces determine the thrust and the scope of their migration. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Please don't confuse being African. Maybe we are trying to make ourselves a unity. I happen to be one of the advocates of the fact that there can never be Africa as a one nation. It's not possible. But what I'm talking about, what we are talking about, African identities, that knowing ourselves as African, the way other people see themselves. Yes, we have diverse culture, diverse backgrounds, but if you look at it, there's a commonality among us. And that's what we are thinking of celebrating in terms of good governance. If you have good governance, you won't have any crisis like of this nature. Whether you look at America today, Europe, what makes them is good governance. What makes people to go there is good governance. If African leaders could strive to be that, people, yes, cosmopolitan migrants, yes, people do that. You can go on holidays, you have your money, you have your resources, but in the context of Japa, this is a kind of a forced migration. They are being forced out. It's not that ask them, it's not that they want it. But because they feel that, okay, well, like what Yoruba will say, is it not better we stay in the farm? So I think we need to interrogate this thing the more. And the reason is there's a need for us to raise the awareness of the need of African government to be more responsible, to be more accountable. Responsible and accountable government in Africa will take us out of all this doldrum. We have the resources, whether I talk about whether human resources or material resources. The greatest problem we have is mismanagement of both our human and material resources. If you're able to overcome that, many people will be contented in their environment. Yeah.
I'm so much. All right, so I want to greet you, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Dr. Dike in the room. I just want to say well done, sir.
Hey, my dog. How are you, ma?
I'm very well, thank you.
How's the family?
So I migrated back to Nigeria. I just from South Africa. But I have the intention of giant father again to
yeah, this how it should be. People should be in and out, not saying that, hey, I'm not going home, or hey, I can't go home again. No, it's our home. We must mix, going there, looking at the virtues abroad, bring it back home to develop. That is the essence of migration. Not you, Jakpa. You know, Jakpa is out of the context of migration.
All right, thank you, sir. I think we are shooting above the time. This is
yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, all the presenters. Thank you for the presentation and the interaction we have. And I think we will continue with that in the tomorrow. Thank you. Yes, if you have
another session tomorrow. For your opportunity to present.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm very glad to see you, sir.
Thank you, Akilabi. You are welcome.
I'm very glad you are still agile and still the same person we used to know back then.
I am still the same person. Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Peter, please let me get the contact of that former student who spoke not quite long ago. Help me get his email address and his probably his phone number. Yeah. Thank you.
Sir,